Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Wednesday Night Mysteries. I'm joined here with my co-host, Yours. Yours, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm doing very well. How are you, Rain?
I'm feeling very well. Are you excited for this week's episode?
For sure. It's a good topic.
Yeah, it's very mysterious.
I agree. It's one of those mysteries that, let's say, not your typical true crime story, but here on the podcast we like to cover all kinds of different things. So I'm very excited. What are we gonna be discussing?
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about the hum.
The Taos hum in
The
particular.
Taos hum, yeah. But have you ever heard like a humming noise, like a fridge? Well, it's typical to hear a fridge hum, right?
Right. You always hear things like that in the apartment. But what if it's something that you can hear but others can't?
What if you turned off your fridge, all of the electrics, but it's still there?
It's still there and no one else can hear it. Only
Just you.
can. Yeah, could you imagine that kind of a life?
Terrifying.
Exactly. And this is what we're going to be talking about. This is a phenomenon.
Yeah.
And people do feel that way. People do actually hear things that others don't.
Definitely a terrifying thought, but shall we start?
We should definitely start. So I think you have some information now. Really quickly before we get going, I just want to, emphasize the fact that we're going to be discussing the hum, and the hum is a worldwide phenomenon where
Yeah.
people hear kind of a sound that's similar to a kind of
Low frequency engine.
diesel engine
Yeah.
sounds, right? And this is a phenomenon that has been happening all over the world, and we're going to be touching upon it, but we have a specific location in mind in New Mexico.
Taos, New Mexico?
Exactly, where this thing was kind of very persistent, probably more so than anywhere else in the world
Yeah.
at this point. So, shall we dig in?
Of course, we're gonna focus on that. And for the introduction, Taos, New Mexico is a small town that seemed like a normal, typical, everyday American quiet town. This town, however, may not be so quiet after all. A mysterious, low-frequency droning sound that is somehow humming, rumbling, buzzing, or somehow sounds like a low-frequency car engine noises can be heard all over this town, and it apparently started in the 90s. Nobody knows where it came from or what it was, but it was apparently more noticeable at night for those who could hear it. It also seems to be widespread, as it was reportedly heard throughout the town. The hum was eventually became bothersome to the residents of Taos in 1993, that they voiced out their concerns and spoke about it to the Congress.
It's pretty interesting because if they actually spoke to the Congress, then we can definitely say
It's pretty bad.
it's pretty bad, and then that this thing was really happening. That apparently a big portion of the population, they all heard this kind of buzzing diesel engine type of a sound. It started in the 90s in Taos, New Mexico. Before we keep moving forward, just want to touch upon that New Mexico, not New Mexico, but Taos is in the northern part of New Mexico. So it's kind of, it's north from Albuquerque. And Taos is a pretty cool place.
Ooh, it looks amazing from the pictures.
Exactly. All of the buildings
Pretty
in Taos, yeah, they still look like back in the day, like as if I was playing Red Dead Redemption or something like
Yeah.
that. Like the Western game.
The only difference is the pictures of the modern cars all around the town.
Yeah, there's like modern Ford pickup trucks and Chevrolets and things of that nature. But yeah, let's move.
But no, we could talk about how annoyed could you be? Like hearing a hum, a persistent hum, you'd probably be so annoyed that you actually brought it up to the Congress. It's definitely bothering your everyday life.
It's definitely bothersome. What is that thing called? Mass hysteria, right? I mean, it kind of, for me, sounds like some of those people that were hearing it perhaps had a slight touch of mass hysteria going on. But I would assume that at least a good portion of those people did, in fact, hear it.
Yeah, I think so, because the Congress actually listened to them. And after that, a local scientific community took concerns seriously. The public study, or a public study, was conducted to examine the so-called hum and what could potentially be going on. Interviews of the local residents were then conducted, and sound detection instruments were placed all around the town of Taos. So it's pretty widespread. Based on the study and interviews that were conducted, only about 2% of the general population of the town can hear the hum, or as they call the residents the hearers. There were apparently approximately 8,000 residents of the area. 1,400 responded to the survey, and 161 of the respondents were hearers or claimed that they heard the hum.
It's strange, right? So 161 people out of
1,400 respondents.
that responded. So that's not the 2%. That's way more. Like out of the responded, right? So I'm gonna try to do the quick math here. It's more than 10% for sure. So out of the people who actually responded to the survey, more than 10% actually reported that they did hear, while the other little less than 90% probably said that they have not heard this.
So if it's only like 1 or 2%, we could just rule it out. Like, yeah, you're just hearing something. But 161 out of 1,400, that's a lot.
It's a lot, and it makes me think that, just by thinking about statistics and stuff like that, I feel like it's probably safe to say that they were in fact hearing something.
Yeah. So let's continue. The local scientific community has set up sensitive sound detection instruments in the homes of several hearers. But after extensive testing, no unusual sound was detected. The only unusual activity that was observed, however, was the elevated electromagnetic field level, but it could be caused by the power lines. After the study was conducted, there were no source of hum ever identified in that town.
Strange.
Crazy. To make things even weirder, residents of Taos reported different descriptions of the hum. Some said it was a whirring sound, some said it was more of a buzz, others described as an E-flat note. These noises are apparently very subtle and are usually drowned out by a background noise, kind of like the hum of a fridge. You would consistently hear it, but it's so subtle and you would just ignore it.
Exactly. I had the same experience today. I was in the morning, I was kind of being silent for a little bit, and I heard the router, the thing that kind of distributes Wi-Fi in the apartment. I kind of heard it making a slight beeping noise, and it's like so mild, but in complete silence it kind of gets amplified. So it's it was getting on my nerves, I'm not gonna lie. I was thinking to myself, what is that noise? And once I turned on some more electronical applications, you know what I mean, in the apartment, it kind of faded away. You don't even pay attention, but in complete silence,
it's loud. Yeah.
And in my case, I'm just thankful that it's not the hum. I can actually,
Were you possibly a bit paranoid about it?
I was, because we were researching the hum, and I was hearing some weird stuff.
And you got a little bit scared?
Yes. I was like, what the hell?
Are you hearing a hum or the hum?
I don't know. I don't know what I was hearing, to be honest. Well, we know the source now, so thankfully
the router and perhaps the fridge.
Thank you. Thank you, God.
Okay, so there was one hearer of the Taos hum who reported that its range was about 30 miles, so it is possible to move away from it. There were apparently equal percentages of male and female hearers, and age does appear to be a factor, as middle-aged people heard the hum and are more likely to hear it. Further tests rule out seismic activities as the source of the hum.
I really want to touch upon the fact that there was a guy, or a woman, I'm not really sure, who reported that after driving outside of the town for like 30 miles, the hum kind of wore off.
Yeah.
So I think this is relevant because, as you know, most people that report the hum all around the world, they can't get away from it. Wherever they go, they will still hear the hum.
Oh.
Yeah, that's like the vast majority of people who report the hum. I think they can't get away from it.
They constantly hear it everywhere.
I don't know if they constantly hear it everywhere, but they hear it at night typically. And I don't think it matters where they are. They will completely hear it. But what was happening in Taos, New Mexico in the early 90s seems like it was, from the research that I've seen, it was kind of, insinuated that these people could actually get away from it.
Yeah. Or maybe we don't know the other side of the coin. Maybe some people couldn't actually get away from it.
Exactly.
Only those who were interviewed claimed that they could.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So, okay. Taos, New Mexico is not the only place where there are people reporting a low-frequency hum, as you mentioned before. In fact, there are spread out reports about this hum. There was the Auckland hum in New Zealand, the Windsor hum in Ontario, Canada, hums reported in Frankfurt, Germany, and St. Louis County in Missouri, and so much more. There are a lot more reports of a hum, and perhaps the hum being heard all across the globe. And now you're going to be talking about this.
Exactly. So there is a website called www.thehum.info, and this website essentially exists to document the hum phenomenon. It has a map database where anyone on that website can actually go to that map and filter out reports of the hum by certain criteria. Now, this is pretty interesting, and I suggest people who are actually kind of interested in this hum phenomenon, you could actually go to the hum.info and you will find this map. It's very fascinating because it has basically, reports of people reporting the hum all over the place, and there are little dots on the globe map, on the world map, and you can press on the dot and it's gonna show you an individual report. So it's gonna tell the age of the person, the gender of the person, and they're gonna tell various kind of symptoms about it, leave a description, so you could actually read. Oddly enough, I found 3 of them in Lithuania.
Ooh.
Yeah, but mostly I would say UK and the US, and mostly English-speaking countries have reported, which makes sense because the website is in English, and obviously these are the geographical locations that will drive the most traffic to this website. So everything makes sense, right? But then you go on the map, and then there are certain filters that you could apply, and this is where things got pretty spooky and pretty bizarre, because I filtered out a couple of things. So the first thing that I wanted to filter out on the map was males and females. Is there more males reporting this hum all over the world than there are females? And oddly enough, it was around the same number. Then the next thing I filtered out was the youngest and oldest reported
Ooh, that's interesting.
people.
Yeah.
Exactly. So guess what was the oldest person who reported the hum? How old were they?
I was guessing 60s, mid-60s.
89.
89?
Yeah, someone
How
reported.
about the youngest one?
Guess.
Like a teenager.
So
17, 18?
11.
11?
That's bizarre.
That's a wide range.
That's a wide range, and the funny part is when you go and read the 11-year-old's description, you could just tell it's an 11-year-old. There's grammatical errors. It doesn't make any sense. There's 2 words in a sentence, then there's 3 exclamation points, another word, then a question mark, then the sentence ends. But these people,
hearers.
What kind of an 11-year-old would actually research the hum and go and apply for the survey? And there's a bunch of these 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds who actually reported the hum, which is strange.
So the age ranges from 11 to 89 years old.
Yeah, there was only a handful of people at 80. I would say the most people are in their mid 40s, mid 30s that are reporting this sensation. Now, another cool, interesting thing that I was able to, filter out about the hum in general was the fact that, let me quickly check. I was able to filter out when is the sound the loudest, because there's, a setting.
Morning or night.
Yeah, morning or night, because you could choose when you make this report. And I filtered out for the morning, and there was a handful of, reports. I see some in America, I see some in the UK. But then I filtered out by night and it exploded on the map.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
So we can clearly tell that everyone, like the vast majority of people who report the hum, they hear it at night.
Is it probably because it's more quiet at night?
Exactly.
So the hum is more distinct. You could hear it. It's louder, like what you experienced earlier with the router when it was quiet, but you experienced it in the morning.
Exactly. And I think the next thing that I filtered out was whether or not they hear the hum outdoors or indoors. And it was even more one-sided. Everyone's hearing the hum indoors at night, basically.
Ooh.
So this is what the people are hearing. The hum is usually reported to be the loudest at indoors at night. Probably the most silent environment you could be in.
Exactly.
Really quickly, want to go over what else is on this website. The general description, because this is basically the website for the hum, it has the most amount of reports, and there's actual doctors and scientists that are actually looking at this information. How they describe the hum is that it sounds like a car or a truck engine idling outside your home or down the block. Now, it is typically perceived louder at night than during the day, and louder indoors than outdoors. The same website estimates that 2 to 4% of the global population can experience this phenomenon under certain conditions. Now, I immediately want to ask you, have you ever had anyone in your life or in general tell you that they're hearing a hum or anything?
Well, as a kid, I used to hear a hum because I live in a city, like a massive, densely populated city.
Yeah.
So I used to hear it, but I thought it's always just a buzz of the city. We live in a major city, so it's probably one of the noises there. But I remember as a kid, we would used to go to the countryside, and we used to stay there for the summer. And I remember I always felt like it was so quiet. The absence of the hum is more distinct for me. Like I would notice it and I don't like it. So maybe it's just the buzz of the city for me.
Oh, so basically when you didn't hear it, you felt uncomfortable.
Yeah, like it was so quiet. I remember at one point I was thinking, am I going deaf?
Do you hear it in Vilnius, Lithuania though?
I think so. Well, not particularly. It's more quiet here. But I would hear it in like the city that I lived in.
In a bigger city.
In a way bigger city.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's just like the hum of the city, of the neighbors or something. But when you go to a countryside, you're all alone in there, not much people. Absence of the city buzz, I think.
Cool, interesting. I think I have recollections from my childhood where I would also kind of think, I'm hearing something. I'm hearing something, but then it would kind of go away. And maybe I still feel that way sometimes, but I don't think I have an active problem with the hum. And I couldn't even imagine living like that. Could you imagine? And remember, we kind of watched a documentary on this for the research, right? And there was this guy who was hearing the hum constantly. His wife was not.
Yeah, that's
so
terrifying.
It started driving him crazy, right?
And the dog heard it.
Oh yeah, the
Apparently,
dog
his
heard it. Oh yeah, that was so crazy. The dog literally.
And the dog was scared.
And they had to put the dog on Prozac. That was the only way for the dog to kind of get out of that mood, was to put it on a Prozac. And yeah, there's video footage on YouTube of that person who recorded it, and the dog literally looks super scared and disturbed.
Yeah, because we also have to remember that the hearing of the dogs are way louder, or they could hear way more than humans. So that's probably why the dog was scared, but it's terrifying in general.
It's crazy. I have another thing that I want to touch upon. On the website that I mentioned, there is a thing called, you can download it, it's the logic map of the world hum. So essentially what this means is the logical potential explanations of the hum. And really quickly, I just want to mention that this website that we have been talking about, it's not a conspiracy theory website. They're not all into conspiracies like that.
It's just factual.
It's just factual, and I feel like the man who runs the website is actually even leaning towards maybe more let's say, internal brain
Yeah.
functions that could potentially be causing the sound instead of an actual physical sound that's emanating from somewhere outside. So the logic map actually consists of explanations, possible causes that could explain what this is. So one of the causes, well, there is basically 6, I think, potential causes. So the first one would be stress, medication, noise pollution, or other environmental factors. Another would be EMF fields, ELF, cellular, cordless, Wi-Fi, etc. ELF is that extremely low frequency kind of technology that the US military had developed to communicate with submerged submarines that are underwater, because you have to have an extremely low frequency radio wave, I think, to kind of penetrate water, and that's what they were using. So some people think that ELF, extreme low frequency radio waves, could actually be interfering, like people could be perceiving them.
Interesting.
It was interesting, right? And we also have another explanation that this could be EMF fields from power lines, high and low voltage. Now, all of these 3 explanations that I've just mentioned are actually part of the long-term exposure in the logic map. So this would explain that individual would be oh man, I can't read. Sensitization to presently unknown mechanisms may cause somato sounds. Oh, probably butchered that, right?
Big word.
Yeah, it's a big word, right? And then there's a couple more plausible explanations, such as it could be a mechanical vibration source transmitted through the ground, or physical acoustic hum or noise source, factory, power plant, aircon, etc. Now, these would be natural or medication-induced enhanced hearing sensitivities and or passive amplifications through room resonance, linear, or some other stuff. So basically, what I'm hearing, what I can take from this logic map that apologies, just had to drink some water. So basically, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing from the logic map is definitely the fact that it's either a mechanical sound emanating,
or noise pollution,
or it's either produced in your brain or something really outside that you can hear. So it's either something that your brain produces and only you can hear it, or there's something outside that your ears are the only ears that are sensitive enough to hear. It's kind of like that. So, I mean, that's the explanation. And as you can see, I also took a few more screenshots. If you could take a look at the notes that we have, that would be like point 15 and 16 in our notes. We watched that documentary that could potentially explain what is this all about. And one of the explanations was that this could be pipelines, gas pipelines. Because this one guy, the same guy with the dog, and the same guy that heard the hum, but his wife couldn't hear it, he made a map overlay. So he basically took a map of the hum reports, and he overlaid that map of the hum reports over another map that consisted of US gas pipelines.
Oh, I remember this. Basically, the towns or the houses where they heard a hum, or there were reports of the hum, are almost along the underground pipes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, kind of in that same manner. Now, that guy also said that, the Taos hum began in the 90s, and that's when apparently New Mexico had a major update to its gas pipelines. And you know what I've done? I've actually took a Google Maps point. That's point 16, if you could take a look.
Yeah.
Where, by the way, we're showing this on the YouTube channel, I'm pretty certain. So we could, guys, go peep that if you want. You can see that Taos, New Mexico is kind of on the northern part of New Mexico. It's, quite a bit north from Albuquerque. And on the right side, you can see a screenshot of gas pipelines that I took from New Mexico. And you could see that there's a red kind of pipeline that kind of goes in the direction of Taos. Do you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
It kind of branches out, right? It makes sense. So it's a potential explanation.
Yeah.
You have to consider this. I'm not really sure what, gas pipelines do, but, it's something.
It is something. Okay, so based on our research, that are some or few of the external factors or external theories about the hum. But now we could talk about the internal ones, if we're hearing it within ourselves or not. So I did a quick research about it, and one of the theories that we found or that we have right now is that some people have an unusual keen hearing, louder hearing than some people. So there is always a number of people with unusually sensitive hearing. And going back to the case of Taos, we can't really say that the other 98% of the population have poor hearing, but instead perhaps the hum hearers might have just had an unusually loud or sensitive hearing.
I feel like the Taos hum, it's impossible because there was such a... What are the chances that such a huge concentration of very good hearers are in one place? Doesn't make sense.
At the same time, right?
Yeah, at the same time, also people are said to come from other towns and also hear the hum. So I think it's... I don't think it's happening with this particular Taos case. No way.
Yeah, so the second theory that I have is auditory hallucination. So it happens when you hear voices or sounds that aren't really there. It is often associated with mental illness, but not most. It's only associated to one, which is schizophrenia, but it could also happen for a number of reasons, which is hearing loss. If temporary hallucinations aren't always a sign of mental health conditions, it could also be a sign of hearing loss or maybe ear infection.
Yeah, but I feel like this could probably explain like the general, if you know what I mean, the world hum, some of those individual reports. Once again, when there's like a huge concentration of these reports in one place, you kind of have to wonder, that's probably an actual physical sound.
Yeah, that is true. Okay, so the next one that I have is kind of similar to the second one. It is autoacoustic emissions. Okay, in a less scientific explanation, it happens when human ears generate their own noises. There was a study that claims that 38 to 60% of adults with normal hearing have them, although most are unaware of these sounds. If you do hear a sound, usually it's a faint hissing or a buzzing sound like an insect.
Right. Once again, I mean, this could probably explain a lot of these worldwide.
Globally. Yeah. And the last one that I have is tinnitus. According to NHS, it's the name for hearing noises that do not come from an outside source. It's not usually, again, a sign of anything serious, and it may get better by itself. It could sound like a ringing, buzzing, or humming. Now, tinnitus is linked to hearing loss, anxiety and depression, diabetes, thyroid disorders, or ear infection. Again, I feel like all of these internal theories would explain the hum globally, but not in like a concentrated area.
Unless it's like
unless people there have ear infections
or diabetes.
Yeah, or thyroid problems.
Exactly, but that's probably not what's happening in the Taos area.
You think it's a pipeline though?
I feel like it could be the pipeline, or at least I think it's like probably let's put it this way, like a physical sound that is probably low frequency, that only a certain amount of people can actually hear it. And the last thing I would like to mention is that if you go on the Wikipedia, it actually states that the Taos hum is actually heard mostly on the western side of the city of Taos, close to the Tres Oreas. Tres Oreas is like some sort of a mountain, kind of a mountain in west from Taos, and it's almost like the sound is coming from that mountain situation, that mountain area. So
could it possibly be a tectonic plates
Yeah.
merging together or smashing.
I think it could be. I think it could be the case because, but once again, I read something somewhere that it was proved that it could not be the.
Yeah.
But once again, I think there's like a lot of like tectonic activity happening
Within that area.
within that area. Exactly.
And the pipelines as well.
Yeah.
I'm more convinced that it's the pipeline and probably a combination of people with loud hearing or sensitive hearing.
Yeah. I think so too. I think it's an actual physical sound. Do you know if it's still present since this day?
Well, I haven't seen any reports of it recently.
Because the way it's been described, it apparently started in the 90s, and I think it kept going, right?
I'm not quite sure about that though.
I mean, it's definitely a location I would probably like to visit.
Just to try to hear about.
Yeah, but you know, chances of me ever being in New Mexico of all places are very low. But however,
we could put that in the bucket list.
Potentially, I mean,
just to try to hear the hum.
That's a pretty big bucket list. You know? It's way down in the bucket. But I would like to say, if anyone of our audience members, and I know for a fact on the Solvable Mysteries podcast, there were people from New Mexico. I know for a fact. Maybe there's someone listening from Albuquerque. Maybe you haven't heard about this. Or maybe even from Taos, New Mexico. Who knows, right?
Who actually heard the hum. Maybe you're one of the hearers.
Please leave your thoughts in the comments section.
Yeah, tell us a story, please.
Yeah. And I mean, at this point, I think we're kind of, you know, we're both kind of in agreement that it's probably a physical sound happening in Taos. I mean, on my end, I'm pretty much, you know, I pretty much talked about everything I had prepared for this podcast.
Yeah, me too, but we're genuinely curious about your thoughts. Please leave a comment about any situation that you had where you heard a hum. Maybe you heard the hum.
Yeah, you heard the hum. Exactly. We'll catch you on the next episode as always.
Yeah, let's talk in the comment section.
Thank you guys.
See
you later. Bye.
Bye.